We're trying it again. We're hoping we can hear everybody, and we are back here on Love Wrestling. Jay, I'm going to ask how you're doing because let's figure out the audio issues early if we've got them. How's it going? And I can't hear you again. What is going on?
Is that any better?
There we go. There we go. Okay, this time it must have just been a mute button. Of course, we have the audio issues figured out. Jay, it's great to talk to you, man. Thank you for joining me here on Love Wrestling. If you guys are listening on the audio version later, then you guys are in store for a wide-ranging interview with one of Canada's premier pro wrestlers and one of Canada's premier content creators. Yeah, Sandy hopping back in the comments. I've got all the time in the world for that Botchamania comment. It makes all the sense. It's completely fair, but only call us out once, because if you're in the comment section like Sandy is for both this and the last one, feel free to get your comments and your questions in for, again, one of Canada's best as far as pro wrestling, as far as content creation and everything in between goes. Jay, it's great to hear from you. It's great to actually hear from you this time. How are you doing, man? How are things over on your end?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to finally sit down and do one of these with you. It's going to be a joy.
I completely agree, man. There's lots going on in your world, which is odd to say for most professional wrestlers at all right now. Of course, up in Canada, restrictions vary province by province, but I know not a lot of professional wrestling has been able to happen. So maybe outside of the content creation, take me into what else you've been doing, because I know that the content side is a big part of what you've been doing over the last little bit. But what else has kept Jay Walker occupied through the last about year and a bit?
Just life in general, and that balance and navigating everything. You know, there's family life, there's work life, there's the whole content creation thing. Trying to stay ready for when things eventually do open back up, so that when I get in the ring, it doesn't look like there's any ring rust or anything coming into that. But yeah, just staying focused and ready, and trying to enjoy the new normal in the meantime of having a little bit of extra time at home.
Yeah. You're working at your parents' restaurant as well, correct?
That's right, yeah.
That's got to be, I guess, an interesting experience as well as far as this whole pandemic goes, but staying well?
Yeah, definitely, to say the least. Yeah, it's been a trip.
Good to hear, both positively, I would have to assume. Of course, we've got our friend Reese on Wrestling in the comments. Hey, Spencer and Jay, a great individual. And, of course, the latest Quizplex champion. Always got to give a quick shout out to that. Sandy has not ever met nor gotten to know Jay Walker. So if you have the opportunity, I was obviously going to ask you, who is Jay Walker? But Sandy, you've got the opportunity, if you want to head over to his YouTube channel. He does a very, very good job of explaining who he is through a variety of podcasts, and just a quick sit down on his end. I'm here to dive deep into Jay Walker, into the Canadian professional wrestling scene. But the first question I've got for you, man, is a pretty lighthearted one, I suppose. How are you enjoying being a champion in a professional wrestling promotion and not having to defend it over the last year?
It definitely makes it a lot easier, that's for sure. It's not what I imagined. You know, I've been the Premier Championship Wrestling Canadian champion for a record 4th time now, and I wanted to, with the platforms I've created through my content, hopefully put the title on a pedestal and really make it mean something across the country. That was the goal for me, and I really wanted to take it different places and let people experience what the Manitoba wrestling scene has to offer to the rest of Canada. And it's really unfortunate, just the way things are shut down right now, that there is no travel, there is no chance to go to an ECCW, to a PWA, to the NEW on the maritime side. None of that's happening, but you know, hopefully things change. But right now, I'll keep the title, I'll keep it looking pretty for when it's time to come back.
Now, unfortunately, there is not a what is PCW video that I can pull from. So this gives me the opportunity to give you the opportunity as well to give the elevator pitch for PCW. You guys do a great job of professional wrestling and have done for a long, long time out in Manitoba. So give me a little bit on them. You guys have had names like Kenny Omega work there before. Don Callis worked there before. You and Leo London worked there before. Give me a little bit on it.
And so PCW's been around for 18 years, which is an incredible benchmark for an independent wrestling promotion, especially when there are so few cities to hit up to run live events. They've been strictly in Winnipeg and doing an awesome job at it. The level, the performance level that's the wrestlers demand from themselves to be in PCW is something I don't see in many locker rooms. We put that kind of pressure on ourselves. Having a locker room leader like Kenny Omega for many years, I think kind of set the benchmark for where to hit and where the kind of entertainment that we want to provide. So definitely, it's an amazing experience. There's no experience like us. There's no locker room like us. We're all out there dedicated to putting on the best high level pro wrestling that you'll see anywhere in the country.
Yeah, it's something I definitely agree with. You guys do a great job, and I do want to keep continuing on the PCW route, but I also want to make sure if we're getting fan questions in, we are doing our prompt or our due diligence, being prompt with them. We've got Reson Wrestling hopping in here. What video editing software does Jay use? Did you freeze up on me? I was going to say you froze up there for a sec. So I don't know if you heard, but there we are with the little scroll at the bottom. What video editing software do you use? Are you back? You're frozen on my side.
Are we losing?
I can hear you. I can hear you for what that's worth. Can you hear me?
I'm not getting anything.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. I'm going to have to pull up Sandy's Botchamania again, but I can hear you for what that's worth. There you are.
We're back. We're back. Right on.
Beauty. Third time's a charm. The second time's somewhat charming. What video editing software do you use?
So for some of the bigger videos, I will use what's called Sony Vegas. It's pretty user friendly. It's definitely no After Effects or anything like that if you know your video editing software. But a lot of the vlog content you've seen over the years on my YouTube channel, if you do pay attention to that stuff, is mostly actually through my phone. It just makes it much more quick to be able to produce things very quickly. So I use iMovie a lot as well as another app that's fairly free to use. There are some extra add-ons you could pay for, but InShot, if you're creating your own content, I definitely recommend those things to start off with.
Are you all self-taught as far as that goes? Did you go to school for video editing or something along those lines?
100% self-taught. As a kid, I was a very, very prominent backyard wrestler with the rest of the neighborhood. And YouTube was just in its infancy. So, yeah, I taught myself how to edit videos right off the hop and upload them right away, and just continuing to evolve and learn along the way. And that's where I'm at today now.
Now, I'm going to be very selfish with this one. If there are videos out there, whether you want them revealed on a live stream or not, at least can you send me a link if there's some stuff out there still?
There is definitely some stuff hidden on the channel, but I still have access to it. It's going to come out for sure.
Absolutely, man. Well, there's another great reason to sign up for the Patreon and all the other great stuff that you're doing online. And it's stuff that I highly recommend you guys give the opportunity to follow. Of course, I am here with PCW star Jay Walker. If you guys are just hopping in, we're answering your questions live, getting your thoughts on professional wrestling and everything in between for a guy that I'll always refer to as one of the premier wrestlers, premier content creators in professional wrestling. It's pretty incredible to me how busy you've been able to stay with that sort of stuff, even despite the lack of pro wrestling and everything that does come with all of the content you create. Has that made it more difficult, or how have you had to sort of change your mindset as far as what you're putting out and putting out consistently?
Right. So I got lucky in the summer where there was that TNT Open Challenge from Cody Rhodes, and that's something I was able to create content for regularly, just to try to put my name in the hat, and it seemed to work fairly well. But once that ship sailed, there was kind of this dry spell and well, what do I do now? And things were so uncertain at the time too. We got hit with that second wave, so I had to take a seat and just think on where to go next and where to channel my energy. And I just did a full deep dive on the people that supported me throughout, even when there was no wrestling, through my Patreon and things like that, and really did some deep dive on old content and reusing it, adding more insight and stories and providing more context to people who are just finding me. And now with I'm creating this list of challenges of very infamous. A lot of wrestlers have done it before, but I'm doing it in a different, unique way with these videos, and trying to get people excited for potential matches when things do open up, without speaking a single word. And I think that takes a special skill from a professional wrestler. So I'm busy with that. I'm constantly thinking new things all the time now. It's awesome to be back in the mix of things.
Well, and I was going to save it for a little later on in the show, but another thing that a great professional needs to know is when you get a great lead in, you use it, damn it. So, as Jay alluded to just now, here's one of those videos that he put out just over an hour and a half ago on the old Twitter machine and the old YouTube channel. Here's his latest. It's very, very cool, man. And I think, like you said, it's a very cool concept in that it's something lots of individuals have done before, but not in the way you're doing it. You sort of see the traditional promo or the Cody list, I think a lot of people refer to it as sometimes. Why Christian specifically for this one?
Uh, One, he's sort of opened the door for himself to be available. I don't know if he's picking up independent dates or not, but I support Canadian wrestling promotions with the platform he's. There's so many parallels between us as well. I grew up obviously a big Christian fan too in my teenage years, but just being undervalued, underappreciated, and underutilized. A lot of his career sort of seems to be a motif, and just not knowing what you have and understanding your own value and willing to outwork and out hustle everyone to prove them wrong. I think it would be an absolute thrill to get in the ring with a guy like that and not only learn from him, but hang with him and prove that I can work at a certain level.
I think it's a fantastic reason, man. It ties us in nicely. Sandy's got a question in the comments. Jay, what match got you into wrestling?
I've told this story a couple times. My parents' restaurant used to rent out VHS tapes. That's how old I am. And there was a poster put up the one day for WrestleMania 6. So, of course, you've got Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, all this lightning going on in the background, these two larger-than-life characters. And right away, as I said, I need to check that out, whatever that is. Popped into VHS, and I think it was Coco Beware versus Rick Martel was the opening match. And it was like, I love this. This is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life.
You're bang on with it. You're bang on with it. Speaking of VHS tapes, have you had a chance to watch the last Blockbuster yet?
No, I have not actually.
So good. I would highly recommend it. You and I are right around that same age where it was like an emotional experience going to Blockbuster. You're not just going to pick up a movie.
Right.
Well worth the time. Well worth the time, man. Outside of that, though, maybe this year, what have been some of your favorite matches, I guess, of this crowdless era, or what's a very unique era in professional wrestling? There have been a lot of great ones, especially considering what I would have to assume is a huge disadvantage of not having a crowd.
Absolutely. I think a lot of talent has really stepped up and sort of found a different way to fill that void right now. Um, I mean, I'm almost strictly watching AEW at this point, so I can't comment too much on WWE. But the matches that have stood out over the last year are some of those cinematic matches, just because they're so much different than everything else, and it really allows the wrestlers to explore a different creative avenue for themselves. So yeah, the Boneyard match at WrestleMania last year, the latest one AEW did with Sting and Darby Allin against Team Taz, I thought was phenomenal. Trying to think, the Firefly Funhouse match was another one where
So good.
so outside of the box and so creative, and I thought that was just this great character piece. You know, just different things, and you're allowed to be different right now. And I think it's paid off for a few people who are willing to challenge themselves creatively like that.
I'm going to give you the chance to put yourself over here, but how cool was it for like Bray Wyatt to be reaching out and retweeting the analysis that you did on that match?
Yeah, that was wild, man. I just did that for the sake of doing it. I enjoy a good story, and a lot of my friends were just kind of buzzing about like how they didn't get it. So I thought I would do this deep dive explanation based off my perception of it. And then I woke up and things just got out of control on Twitter, and wrestling news sites were posting it, like, you know, and then of course, yeah, for a guy like Bray Wyatt to you know comment, he gave just nudge.
Sorry, you cut out there for the last, I think, 5 seconds. Can you give a quick repeat on her? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was just a cool little nudge from him. Something I didn't expect is just totally took off and took on a life of its own.
On an independent level, especially with someone like yourself who knows the video editing side of things, do you think that's an opportunity for, let's even say yourself specifically, not even getting to the general independent wrestling scene?
Absolutely. I think everyone should be hopping on and doing this kind of stuff right now because, I mean, you've got to put in the work yourself. You've got to put yourself over because no one else is going to do that kind of work for you.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to dig into that a little bit more because, again, I don't want to generalize with a lot of stuff. I think you're a guy who would be very well suited. So maybe cinematic isn't the solution for everyone in Canada. But part of the thing that I wanted to pick your brain on today was just the general Canadian independent wrestling scene, because you see a lot of people on Twitter over the last little bit with Canadians have various disadvantages in pro wrestling. Some have a ton of merit. Some are meritless in a lot of opinions, mine included. And I wanted to pick your brain on that. I guess on the general sense of things, what do you see as maybe the biggest opportunity for Canadian wrestling?
I mean, there's so many different avenues you could explore, but I think the biggest thing is to think outside of the bubble. The BC scene, BC is its own thing, Alberta's its own thing, Manitoba's its own thing. I think we need to focus more on a global audience and trying to attract eyes into watching our talent rather than just focusing on hitting up every little town along the way. But by expanding your audience and expanding that reach, it could benefit not only the promotion but the talent as well by getting their names out there.
Mm-hmm. For Canada specifically, then, do you see that being maybe more of an online thing, or is that, you know, you alluded to hitting every little town along the way? There are a lot of meccas in Canada that you could hit, whether you look at Winnipeg or Edmonton or just Vancouver is another bigger city. A lot of people could recognize driving's an issue, but could you see there maybe being a Canada-wide tour on a bigger scale?
It's tough to judge. I think it would take a lot of time to develop something like that where the interest and the awareness is there. But, I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? It's about taking that first step.
Mm-hmm. NXT Canada, is that a reality?
Man, I thought it was going to be a thing. I'm surprised it's not a thing, to be honest with you. But I think with everything that's happened, it's really slowed down a lot of things that were in motion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you as well. Like, I think you would have been, again, a guy who, when AEW Dark came around, if it wasn't for that border issue that gets brought up, you could have been one of those guys who was perfect for AEW Dark. Again, is that a goal? Would you look more at the WWE side of things, or where would you want to see yourself going? Where would you see yourself personally wanting to expand the most?
I mean, I'm willing to hear out anything as far as any opportunities go, but WWE is very much a machine that is built looking for super athletes to really create awareness to try to broaden their talent pool. They're not necessarily looking for, your average independent wrestler or even some of the top named independent wrestlers. That's not what they're really looking for right now, and I'm okay with that. That's just the way the game is. So AEW seems to have their foot forward with supporting independent wrestling and giving guys opportunities that are willing to do the work and put themselves out there. So I definitely think AEW would feel more of a better fit for me. But like I said, you never know. If there's an offer on the table, I'm willing to hear it and see what there is available.
Well, and you've got to, like, at least on an outsider's end, assume that having individuals like Jericho and Kenny Omega and other people who aren't just great pro wrestlers, but great Canadian pro wrestlers, and not just great Canadian pro wrestlers, but great Manitoban pro wrestlers in some ways, shapes, and forms. How much of an inspiration, or how much does that sort of make it look like it can be a reality for someone like yourself who is taking all of those right steps?
Right, right.
How cool is that for you when maybe you see those guys hitting that level?
It's amazing, man. Even some of the guys I know in Canada that got looks of these borders.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, you cut out there again for the little bit of the middle end. I'm sorry on the Wi-Fi issues. For those watching, can you maybe give a little quick recap on what was just said?
Sorry.
No,
We're losing. There's a
no
glitch in the
worries.
system here.
Literally and
So
figuratively,
yeah,
hey?
yeah. So I think it's just awesome. I've seen a couple of guys get opportunities at some of the other big promotions as well, just getting looks even, and it gives hope to a lot of talent out there that it is possible to break past the borders. Just a matter of getting your name out there.
Who are some of those individuals you see on the Canadian wrestling scene that have that potential?
Man, Michael Allen Richard Clark's a guy I've known for quite a few years now. He's got all the potential in the world if he applied himself. Michael Richard Blaze, I've never met him in person. Very well aware of what he's doing and love it. He got down to Florida there. He's been through the NXT a little bit. Would love to see him make it because he has all the potential in the world. Ravenous Randy Myers is another guy. I've never worked on a show with him, but he
Really?
has come through Winnipeg. Yeah, he's
That
been through Winnipeg.
surprises me.
Yeah, he's been around for a while too. But man, I remember it's been like 8 years ago maybe. Mick Foley was telling WWE to sign him, and it's unfortunate that it hasn't happened yet. But there's another guy with just all the potential in the world. I got to give a shout out to some Ontario guys. Mark Wheeler is one that really stands out as a guy with a ton of potential to be in the big leagues.
Yeah, when you talk about people who are great ambassadors of pro wrestling in Canada, he's one of those first names that comes to mind, whether it's just being, again, a great pro wrestler or just a great person to see out there flying the flag for Canadian professional wrestling. Of course, friends, I am here with another one of those individuals, Jay Walker, joining me on the show for about the next 10, 15 minutes. So if you're in the comment section, get your questions in, let us know, say hi to Jay, and of course, thank you for continuing to support us here at Love Wrestling. What really got you inspired? Of course, recording your professional wrestling shows as the backyard guy is one thing, but when it comes to the content creation side of things, what was your first foray into it? The first time I got to sort of experience that side of you was the Unhacked series, but was there anything before that, or how did you first get into it?
Okay, so
You're
yes,
back now.
I did. I threw out the odd match in the promos, like any other wrestler I think would. But it was really realizing that I only had 15 minutes or so in a ring. I only had a couple of minutes for a promo, and you didn't really get to know me that well through those channels, you know? And so I wanted to give more context to who I am, what I do, and that's where I think the vlog came into perspective. It's something I could creatively manage for myself and be a chance to the event to come along.
Okay.
And it was a learn as you go process, but I feel like it's helped immensely with, again, not only reaching a more global audience, but connecting much more with that local audience as well that does pay attention to what's going on online.
Absolutely. I want to dive back into that in a second, but Sandy's hopping back in with another great question. What is your dream match? And I'm going to split it up because I had a different iteration of this as well. What is your Canadian dream match?
Oh, I mean, Christian Cage is pretty high up on that list right now. Just that guy being on the top of his game. But one that has stood out for a very long time that is much more possible now than it ever has been. Being from the Winnipeg wrestling scene as well and growing up watching him just take over the wrestling world, Chris Jericho would be a very fun one to mix it up with.
Yeah, I feel like he'd be one of those guys that just unfortunately coming up when he did, you don't have the internet access that we do now. I feel like he would have been another one of those guys on just the forefront of Twitch or YouTube videos or whatever iteration of era he would have come up in. Hey, such a good businessman. Again, another great representative of Canadian professional wrestling. On your end of things, is there a piece of content? Is there a series? Is there anything along those things that you're particularly proud of?
Ah man, I was just actually watching some old stuff putting together, and there's an episode of mine. It's just so honest and candid about my experience. I was, for the first time ever, main eventing the biggest show of the year for Premier Championship Wrestling, challenging for the heavyweight title, and kind of being relied on to be the draw, the big attraction on that show. So I candidly showing these backstage happenings and just what I was going through mentally to prepare myself and kind of overcome any anxiety or pressure I put all on myself. It was unique watching that back because I sort of put that aside because it was almost a bad memory of just like all this fear and everything I was kind of battling with before going out there in the ring. So to watch it back now, I'm very proud of not only the content but just like how it's hard to put it into words, but just how it really let you into my mindset, to my mind frame, to what was going on that night.
It again ties in nicely. Use the nice segues when you've got them. But in my entire time in knowing you, it's cool maybe isn't the right word for it, but I've always appreciated your openness and your willingness to discuss stuff like that, your mental health, your challenges and your victories with them. Was that maybe a turning point for you with that? Or when did you maybe start to see that become a part of your persona online as much as it is in personal conversations, as I would have to assume?
It's something I noticed backstage happening a lot. Me and some of my closer friends, you know, Jackie Lee, Alex Vanna, those kind of talent from PCW. We started talking a lot about that. You know, just all these pressures on ourselves. We put a lot on ourselves, absolutely, but just there was none of that talk online, and I think it's very important. You know, wrestling sort of has evolved now to be more inclusive and open, and I think there needs to be a lot more discussion as far as the health of these athletes that are destroying their bodies and their minds trying to put on these live performances. So I think it's been great in connecting with people on a much more human level than just seeing these larger than life superstars. We try to, you know, put the mask on and go out and do it.
Yeah, here's the next match, brother. I'll see you on this day at this time. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I know we're getting repetitive on my end at least, but as we get closer to wrapping shows up, we've got about 10 minutes left with Jay Walker. If you've got questions, which I know you probably do for a guy as fantastic in the ring and outside of the ring as Jay, so get them in. We're happy to chat about anything coming up, including where I want to touch on next, WrestleMania coming up. I know that you said that you're not watching a ton of WWE lately, but let's just get real. It's WrestleMania. We all watch it. Is there anything you're specifically excited for about the show of shows?
The only things that really have my attention, the things that I'm kind of rooting for to succeed, is the women's division actually,
Okay.
on both brands. So yeah, I think they've got two phenomenal women's matches they put together for this year. Very excited to see how they pull it off, and I hope it lives up to all expectations. It's great to see that division flourish as much as it has, and all the new stars they've created along the way too.
Absolutely, man. New stars being created everywhere in pro wrestling. Not necessarily new in Britt Baker's case, but man, that match. What were your thoughts on it?
I thought that was phenomenal. What was it? Someone said that might have been the best women's match they've seen. It's definitely up there in contention because yeah, they poured it all out there in the ring. It's not easy to pull off something like that. Everything clicked, and something everyone's going to remember for a very long time.
Here's not really a question, but a comment from our friend Sandy, who, if you're in that comment section for as long as you have been, and you're shouting out Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, we're going to throw that comment on the screen because it's just a good thing to be happening. As far as intergender goes, you talk about the women's division in professional wrestling. Have you ever done it? Are you a fan of it?
Yeah, I'm a huge supporter of intergender wrestling. I've had a couple of matches. I've got one up on the YouTube channel. Go find it. But I have talked about it as well. Yeah, I'm a huge supporter of it. I think it's a big missed opportunity for a lot of wrestling promotions out there who aren't doing it. Just that men versus female dynamic. It's very easy for an audience to get behind it actually in a live environment. And there's a lot of new stories to tell. And I think even when you look at the WWE landscape, I think a lot of women are a lot more popular than the men are nowadays.
Oh yeah.
I would love to see a Sasha Banks versus Seth Rollins match.
Man,
there's a lot of potential out there that's unfortunately not getting tapped into right now. Yeah.
Absolutely mind-blowing, man. Absolutely mind-blowing. I didn't even think of that. You've got me shell-shocked. Is that something that's even much of an opportunity out in Winnipeg? We're lucky out here in Alberta to have a really, really great women's scene right now, but I obviously can't speak much to what's going on out there. Do you have a lot of females professional wrestling right now?
We're stealing all your Alberta talent right now. Yeah, no, it's been great having them though, and it's a great addition to the show, and it's great to see some actual female talent that really wants to get out there and roll up their sleeves and have some phenomenal matches. They've mixed it up, and they're a great addition to the locker room.
Mm-hmm. When was the last time you were out here in Alberta? Have you been out?
So I've never done a show in Alberta, but there was a seminar with Les Thatcher, who helped create the OVW training system. And as well as Lance Storm was there as well. It was a great experience to meet a lot of guys I hadn't met yet from the Alberta scene, and hoping to get back one day to have some solid matches with some of the top talent out there.
Top talent, both literally and figuratively, or
That's
are you
right.
just throwing that out there as a nice little pun?
Absolutely, heavy metal. I'm coming for you.
Man, I'd love to see it. If you talk about great people doing great things in pro wrestling right now, and you're not mentioning him in Canadian senses of things, love opinions, but you're a little bit wrong if he's not thrown in that. The Top Talent Wrestling Academy is doing great things. What kind of opportunities are there out there in Winnipeg for training, COVID notwithstanding?
It's funny because myself and Jackie Lee were actually hoping to start up some training for PCW to get some new talent in and some young people that are interested in pursuing it and giving them a different perspective, not just the Jackie Lee, of course, is built like a Greek god. He's got all the advice for physical conditioning as well as the in-ring work, having been trained by Lance Storm. And myself with the I've produced and booked and promoted live events as well as the social media and content creation aspect. We were hoping to develop some well-rounded talent that could do it all.
Mm-hmm. Have you trained a ton before?
Myself personally, like in the ring?
Yeah. Have you trained others before?
Trained others. We had one training session, and it got shut down after, unfortunately.
Absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. Timing kicked everybody in some way, shape, or form, but especially, and I sent the tweet out a couple of days ago, when it's taken away from opportunities from pro wrestlers to learn, that's a little bit more of a kick for a guy who's a big fan of the indie wrestling scene out here. Absolutely. What do you think makes a great trainer?
Somebody who has patience. I think that's a big thing, but as well as somebody who really is dedicated to committing themselves to really just putting it out there and developing these people and having the students' interests in mind rather than just their own personal ambitions.
100%, man. I think that's a great answer. Hopefully, I'm going to agree with yours here because Sandy throwing one in the chat. Have to ask, my favorite breakfast is Canadian pancakes with maple syrup. What's your favorite breakfast?
What's breakfast? Man, growing up, I was a night owl. So growing up, I would usually sleep through breakfast. Now it's more about I'm huge into fasting. Actually, it's intermittent fasting. So yeah, throughout the night, and I skip my mornings. I'll usually eat my first meal around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So breakfast isn't a popular meal around here. But man, you can't go wrong with some bacon and eggs when you need it.
No, you should have seen me about an hour and a half ago if you want some evidence of my vouching for that as well. One sort of random semi one I had here as well, and it might be answered by your revelation of your backyard endeavors. Prince Fuego Jr. Who is that?
Man, I was refereeing in PCW for about 4 years, and there was just no training available at the time. Eventually, I just put in the work enough where they kind of threw me a bone and made me an authority figure, and then a manager, and we sort of talked our way into to get me into the ring just to lay down in a tournament for the man who I was managing at the time, Scott Justice. And instead of just laying down, we went and put on a 10-minute match that the promoter was not expecting at all.
Can't say that when I'm taking a drink, man.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I had the mask on, had this little look. The idea was to go as WCW cruiserweight as possible, hence the Prince Fuego Jr. name. And after that, the next person who wrestled Fuego happened to be Kenny Omega. He asked, "Hey, can I work with this guy?" And he said, "Are you sure?" and yeah, no. So had a little match, and he gave me the thumbs up after that thing, and said, like this guy can actually do well in the ring. Like throw him out there, and that's kind of where my professional wrestling career started out.
That's insane, man. Absolutely insane. Even then, like, he was a bigger name in Canadian wrestling and obviously started to build from there to a worldwide scale. But, like, hearing what he's been like in PCW before, and you reference him as a locker room leader, how much did it even mean to you then? I think it'd mean a lot to anybody hearing that Kenny Omega gave the thumbs up, when you're looking at it from the 2021 perspective. But coming back then, it must have been right at the start of 2010 when you started wrestling, obviously. How cool was that?
That was wild. Like, obviously, everyone knew how good he was. He had come back from WWE already. He was just entering DDT Japan. Yeah, he just had all the advice in the world for anybody who was actually willing to reach out to him. And there was a lot of great advice that still influences me to this day.
When was the last time he was back? I think it must have been about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, man.
Just before the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely before the pandemic. We did a show with him, and it's always great to have him back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got a friend just saying hello in the chat. Excuse me. That was rude of me. Kim Beauregard saying hello in the chat. Kim, you got some great time, and we're getting down to the final strokes of the questioning side of things. So if you've got some, you've got plenty of time to ask some questions from, again, one of my favorite people on the Canadian wrestling scene, Jay Walker. Jay, I also have to ask you, and I was going to ask you earlier before you gave me a great leeway into another question. The first individual you went after with those Cody list or the J list is what I'm going to move on to it with, was one Warhorse, a very different individual than Christian Cage in a lot of different ways. What inspired you to make him not only a person on the list, but the first person you went after?
I mean, he took my spot for that TNT title, man. Man, he's definitely a unique character. He definitely capitalizes on social media. But if you were paying attention when those open challenges were being thrown out, and whether it be the AEW social channels or the Fight TV social channels, when they were asking who do you want to see, number one was Warhorse, but number two for the most mentions was Jay Walker, and that was pretty impressive. And I'm just saying, he's the only guy who went up and didn't get signed. So, maybe if I went first, things would have been different.
You would have kept the streak going.
Absolutely.
How much does it mean to you that like you've been able to make such a connection with your fans? Obviously, any professional wrestler would be excited about it, but there are a lot of pro wrestlers who connect. Not a lot, in my opinion, who connect quite the level you do, or with, I guess, as much enthusiasm and passion, frankly.
Right. Man, it's so life-changing. In wrestling, there is still that competitive of like, hey, we don't want this guy to get more ahead than this guy. We gotta, you're kind of always just looking out for yourself. So to have this moral support, this huge collection of people that just want to see me succeed and encourage me and get the word out about me, it's made such a big difference over the last couple of years doing all of this.
It's awesome to hear, man, and I hope that it's something that continues for years and years and years, because I ain't had the chance to see you wrestle live. Thankfully, you do great on the YouTube end, but damn it, there's still something I got to check off my list here. One of those things is a trip out to Winnipeg sooner rather than later. Jay, it's been an absolute blast. I always love chatting with you, whether it's just on Twitter, responding to each other via DM, Facebook, or in a forum like this where we've not only got the chance to chat with you, but a lot of you great individuals in the chat. If you guys have any final questions, feel free to get them in real quick. But while we do that, Jay, please feel encouraged to plug your social media where people can keep track of you, because you are a hell of a follow, my friend, and a lot of people should do so.
I appreciate that. It's super easy to find me no matter what social media channels you use. It's all the same handle. It's I am Jay Walker. That's IAM Jay Walker. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Always putting out new stuff, whether it's the videos, the tweets. I'm super. I will very lifeblood that. Or disconnect from me. That's okay too.
I was just going to say, I was hoping it at least did so that I wouldn't have to be the one to be like, and there we go. But we got her figured out. As we get closer to closing it out here, I've got to pull this one up because it's a very nice one from our friend Kim, who just hopped in. Happy belated birthday to your daughter, both her and myself as well.
You got the balloons in the back. Yeah, it's celebrating her 8th birthday.
That's awesome. Awesome to hear. Please wish her happy birthday from everybody here. Not just Kim, who did it first, but everybody at Love Wrestling, because everybody should be supporting great people in pro wrestling. And I know if you're one, your daughter has to be one as well. Jay, it's been, again, an absolute blast. Thanks once again for your time today. And, of course, thank you, everybody who hopped into the chat, not only for this one, but, Sandy, I know in your case specifically, for the first little technical difficulty I had. It's kind of nice that we can play off the glitch in the system for this one, though, because Jay Walker not only holds that nickname, but the title of one of my favorite people to talk to in pro wrestling. If you want to keep up with the latest and greatest from Love Wrestling, you, like everybody else, can find us at Love Wrestling CA pretty well anywhere podcasts are played or videos are viewed. If you really want to help us out on the audio end, please head to ratethispodcast.com/Love Wrestling CA. Help us out on that algorithm. It does great things for us, just as Jay does great things for Canadian professional wrestling. Once again, it's been a blast, Jay. Thank you once again. I want to have you on sooner rather than later, but I'm rambling in the wrap up. So let's just close her out with thanks once again, and we'll talk to you soon.
That's good. Thank you, man.